This computer. Well, greetings to everybody. This is Dr. Deb Carlin here, and I have an absolutely phenomenal guest today. My new friend, I'm going to call her a sweetheart of a person, Danielle Patterson. How are you this morning, Danielle?
I am excellent, Dr. Deb. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Every time we have had a conversation, starting with the very first one, and why did we have that conversation? Because over the past year, as I have been learning how to do raising capital, which is a world unto itself, I came across this amazing discovery. People are talking about family offices. And I said, oh, yeah, we had a family office, not recognizing family offices. And so I start learning, and I realize that a percentage of my clients and patients are part of a family office. So I had a
Yes.
whole new appreciation for it from behind the curtain. Then I'm on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn and I find you, and you have the family office list company. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've landed in the sweetest spot. So, of course, I start looking and reading your posts, and I had to talk to you. And from the very first conversation, I have felt illuminated and informed. So, would you please describe your company to our audience? Because I want them to know who you are and what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Deb. And I agree. Our first conversation, learning about your work, sharing what I do,
Yeah,
it was just so natural. And I love that we've kept in touch the way we have. And
yeah.
yeah, honored to be here and to share a little bit about my story. So, interestingly, Family Office List was founded in the early 2000s. And at that time, very similar to your discovery of what a family office is,
Yeah.
the original founder, Douglas Fathers, was raising capital for his first hedge fund. And once he exhausted friends, family, he went to the world of ultra high net worth and realized, oh, yeah, the same as your discovery. There's this thing called a family office. I just
Mm,
thought they were wealthy families.
right.
And what he found was for a fund manager in that position, not being ready for institutional level capital, it really was a sweet spot. And he spent a tremendous amount of time networking, building, a list of those that he would prospect for his future funds. And later in his career, advising other fund managers on their go-to-market strategies, realized, I'm not going to make you reinvent the wheel. My list is a valuable tool, and hence Family Office List was born. And for years it was, this static Excel offering, a valuable tool, easier than someone needing to spend the thousands of hours to create this on their own.
Oh my gosh,
But
yes.
when I joined the team and later acquired the company, we'll get into it. I My passion is really marketing and sales and connecting with people and helping them. And the more I learned about family offices, the more I thought about how this list was being utilized. I thought,
Mm,
oh, we can do so much better because in the
wow.
world of family offices, as you know now, and the families you work with,
Yeah,
no two are alike. They have different
exactly.
dynamics, different priorities, different investment objectives. And using a list and trying to email treats it as if it's a one size fits all. It's a spray and pray model that simply doesn't work.
Right.
And it takes strategy that I think is very well informed using data. So the data holds a very important part, but you need more. You need more insights. And so that's really where this excitement stemmed from and led me to acquire Family Office List. And excitingly, I haven't really announced it publicly. You're the first.
Yay.
Um, we are the end of the month, very slight rebrand, but we are becoming Family Office Access because it's more than a list. It's data that helps inform alignment, and then it's strategy to really build those relationships. And
Ah,
that's what I know. You are an expert in those
I
relationships
love
and
that.
how you add value. And so, yeah, that's just a real quick overview of Family Office List. But happy to talk more about what it is and how you use it. But that's kind of
So
the backstory.
I love that. And that lays the groundwork for the context. And one of the things that I'm really intrigued about is how it is that the families respond to you and the financial advisors that are the professionals running that family office. So there's two questions in there for you.
Yeah. So to start with the families, I struggled the first couple years. I had terrible imposter syndrome. I felt I don't belong. These families aren't going to want to be on this list. This just feels dirty. And so all I channeled my energy into was, well, if I have this list, I'm going to make sure it's accurate, it's well maintained, and that's really what created the platform, a better delivery mechanism, helped organize our researchers. But then I realized, as we took it farther and we really highlighted each family office for their individuality, this helps them. More and more we see families, whether it's investment related and they're looking for, like-minded families or co-investment deals, they are starting to raise their public profiles. And so by having something that really strives to depict what their family stands for, and if they are investing directly or in funds, where their interests are, how they like to structure deals, so that those who are, looking to connect can take a much more strategic, informed, and targeted approach versus, sending a real estate deal to someone who only invests in, solar. So the families I've found over time, and we had a live stream about this yesterday about PR and communications and how they're choosing. I'll send the recording. It was a great conversation featuring two experts who have done it for over 25 years, but it was really fun to talk about how the industry is changing and just our world is changing, how we communicate, the role of social media, the necessity now for some of these families who are running their family offices as businesses to have a public presence. If they want to attract talent, but they have to be strategic because it's a balance between privacy and presence. And so I feel the more I can be a resource and add value to what they're hoping to achieve, if a family comes and wants to be listed, we work very, strategically to craft that profile. And as much as I can do in terms of providing valuable introductions, and just really immersing myself in the space to hear from them. What are their pain points? Attending some of these conferences where they're the ones speaking and sharing best practices. And that's what I found. It can be isolating sometimes to be in these positions and to feel alone. And so I think there is a craving in some instances to connect with others. And so that's the families. Now the advisors, I think, are going to become increasingly important. I think, as Ron Diamond says, it's a fractured, fragmented industry right now.
And
There's a
Ron
lot.
Diamond is an incredible authority and expert in this space.
He is, I've learned from him for years, and he's a mentor of mine. And I just really enjoy hearing him speak about where the industry has come, where it's going. And as a trusted advisor to a cohort of 100 family offices, it's important that these advisors stay ahead and have access to different service providers, different resources, because especially now with AI, I mean, things are changing at the speed of light. And family offices, interestingly, for holding so much wealth, they really haven't adopted a lot of technology. Maybe it just hasn't been necessary, or threats of cybersecurity, but we see more technology playing a big role. But there's, what do I use? How do I implement it? Just a lot of different issues that these families are facing. So advisors who can become specialized and can really help know the ecosystem become very important. And that's where it becomes an ecosystem, and knowing who the players are, who the families are, but who the advisors and service providers are is really important. So that's over the past 2 years, really trying to build more community and find partners to build an ecosystem has been my goal, because that's I think what's going to be increasingly important as we move forward.
You know what's interesting? Even though we've talked periodically, I am surprised to learn today that you started out with the families first, because I thought you
Mhm.
started out with the advisors first. But what
Mhm.
what was running through my mind is your style the integrity, the kindness, the gentility, the intelligence that you lead with is exactly what the family of the family office needs to be greeted with, because they are so barraged with people coming at them, fraudsters,
Yeah.
flim flam people, people who befriend them because they know something about their net worth or their influence. And as you walk in, the trust factor, the likability factor is high. As a doctor of psychology, I can tell you that my assessment of you is you have a high likability index.
Thank you. That means
It's
a
true.
lot because when I started
Yes.
this, it wasn't that, but I've been determined and it's taken time.
Yeah.
It's really taken, and that's the thing, any relationships, anything great, it does take time. But when you hold true to your values, your mission,
Yes.
you can take something that initially maybe was just that,
Yes.
encouraging the wrong approach. But by being a leader, by helping with the strategy. And that's where family office list is no more or less, it's access and teaching people through my own leadership how to enter the space and approach the families.
One of the things that I like that you talked about was the privacy of the family. That's one of the things that I'm always concerned about in my line of work is the privacy, the integrity, the never leaking anything, which, I mean, that goes back to my childhood. So I learned that at an early age. But building the profile, and I was just envisioning your whole approach in that as you're working with these families, you walking in and helping them build a profile that will have a public presence to it has got to feel scary and exciting and reassuring and also so productive for them, because the question then is not how are we going to get to choose where we put our money, but who will come to us and how will we select. So you're helping them filter out a lot of unnecessary contact, aren't you?
It's very true. It's very true. And it's really, we work stronger in collaboration. And, these families, they need help, but finding the right partners, finding that alignment is so important. So you're exactly right. And I do love learning the unique story of each family because they're so different. And so if you can really showcase and elevate those that themselves are leaders or doing really great things, I think it just helps the entire ecosystem.
One of the other things that run through my mind, and by the way, I got to actually meet Ron Diamond at one of the
Did
first
you?
events that I went to with Brad Blazer. It was up in Chicago. Neil Green of
Yeah,
Jaboy. So he
yeah.
did an event last spring at the Pendry in Chicago, my home city.
Amazing.
So I went up there and I had no idea who Ron Diamond was, but he
Yeah,
was one of the speakers. And as this man is speaking, I'm noticing, I mean, it was a great event because there were probably maybe 30 people in the room. It was a great event because the energy was high, but it was tame. People were reverent, very respectful. And he's
yeah.
up there and I'm thinking, I don't know who this man is, but what a brilliant soul. And then I thought, what a tender heart, because he was talking about his dad
Yes.
and how what happened with his family with his father impacted him. And I was drawn to him and wanted to know more, and then I realized who he was and I thought, oh my, what, how fortunate am I.
Yeah,
But one of the
absolutely.
things that he is educating all of us about is this massive shift of
Mhm.
massive wealth in the trillions of dollars from one generation into the next and the jeopardy. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I specialize in is the dynamics of all that, the family dynamics of all of that. And I'm seeing families who are in my practice that I'm attending to. Grandma and grandpa have got it down to a science. They got it from great grandma and grandpa. They tried to pass it along to mom and dad. Mom and dad are in a totally different zone, different era, different space, and their kids are really, some of them haven't even been exposed to the reality that there is an empire,
Yes.
which is stunning to me because what I've asked my patients is, what do you think your children think about your lifestyle? What do you
Yeah.
think they think about the abundance that they live in? Oh, well, they think we work. Well, what do they think you work doing? Because you're always home, or you're going
Right.
to a class, or you're doing this. And there's a sort of a dream quality to it where there's not a solid plan in place for that awareness, that entry into. Um, these kids are not growing up with the values being instilled. And so, do you see that
Absolutely.
too in the families, or is this just my experience?
I absolutely do. I think when communication breaks down, there's just not that awareness. And with this younger generation that doesn't understand the hard work, the grit, the resilience that the generations before had to undergo, I think the wealth in many cases can just be lost
Yes,
because
squandered.
they, yeah, squandered. And we talk about the percentages by the third generation. I think 75% of family offices fail. And that statistic is staggering. And I think it is. It's a breakdown in communication. I think it's very interesting. I've seen lots of families who have mission statements and they, have shared them with me and they discuss, this is where we've made our wealth. These are our values and we are very fortunate we, want to instill these values upon you. And those are the families, they're communicating, they're being very intentional, like you said. And many families choose, to withhold the wealth, but it is hard when you talk about there is a certain lifestyle that
Mm.
you want to maintain and that can, create some conflict. So um, a recent interview with, Camille Homsey, he doesn't give the money to the family unless they are going to start a business and they're going to work for it, and then he'll support. And so it's unique how different families have taken different approaches and how to address that next generation. But I think the work you're doing, because it really comes down to communication and really keeping the family and everything in this world, it seems so fragmented. There are now, families can be like, for example, my family is in California and I'm here all the way in Charleston, and that divide, it becomes difficult. And so, yes, I definitely relate to what you're saying and definitely see the same thing happening.
One of the things that I think that we can do in our culture with the family offices, with what you do and with what I do, with the relationships that you have with the advisors and the families both, I think we have a golden opportunity to shift the culture, not just the family offices and what's happening to them in the transition of wealth, but they have so many eyes on them because of their position in our culture, even if
Yes.
they don't realize it, that the more that we help them live authentically as a family that loves one another, that is cohesive, that is unified, that doesn't end up with splashes on the, the whatever outlets here in the media,
Yeah.
but that those splashes are about unity, about family celebrations, about coming together, about doing the life journey and featuring that. The culture can see that and stop running in such a scattered way. I have to
Mhm.
tell you, I have always made house calls, Danielle, and I am stunned at how many homes I have gone into over the decades. And I say, that is a beautiful dining room. Do you have Sunday dinners in there? No.
Yeah.
Do you have Christmas dinner in there? No. We go out, we go somewhere else. Okay, how about the kitchen table? No, like breakfast at the kitchen table. No, we eat on the run or we sit at the bar here.
Right,
Okay.
right.
How about everybody is sitting at the table? This sounds like Andy of Mayberry, the television show
No.
I love, but
Yeah.
old fashioned, you sit at a table, you look at one another eye to eye. You're
Yeah.
you're practicing the etiquette. You're
Yes.
practicing the coming together and enjoying. the setting of the table and the serving of the food and the prayer or the statement of whatever for your
Yeah.
day. And everybody starts out the day grounded
Yes.
with love in their heart, right?
Absolutely. And I know life can get busy, but we have choices to make and there are priorities. And I think, family should be the forefront. I feel very
Yes,
blessed, that my grandparents, their parents, my parents, beautiful marriages, beautiful values. Family comes first. We always ate at the dinner table. And I feel fortunate and blessed. My husband's raised the same way. And so being together at meals, cooking at home, it's something we enjoy, we love. Are we
absolutely.
busy? Are we getting more scattered as the sports enter the scenario with three children? Yes, but again, priorities and finding the time for the things that really count. It makes a huge difference. So I'm sure that's what you probably help a lot of your families with.
Yes, absolutely. And two things. When I think about it, there is not a single television show that I have seen that is like one of those real life in the moment shows, where these values are being exhibited. Everybody's on the run, and it's about other themes of competitiveness, whether it's a housewife show or some other kind of show,
Yeah.
competition of some sort in the wild. Um, but imagine if we could really have these things featured. Um, and speaking of that, I want you to feature what your last vacation was because we
Yeah.
were talking about it. I think it was the day before you were going, and your glee and
Yes.
the imagery of what you were going to celebrate
Yeah.
was so beautiful. Please share that because it's so germane to our conversation here.
Well, thank you. I feel just incredibly blessed that the timing worked the way it did. We do our best to get out to California, where all my family is based. It's where I grew up. And I think my father helped pull some strings to make this work, but we were going to go out to California for my children's spring break. There's a favorite spot. It's 2.5 hours north of San Francisco. It's called Sea Ranch.
Okay.
It's beautiful development built in the 60s. The goal was to integrate into the environment. So there's, no lawns. Some of the houses have grass on the roofs. They're very interesting architecture, angled, wood paneled. So we went up there and it was really special, just time disconnected from technology,
Ah,
out in the wilderness, tide pools, hiking. And my father came up. He has a new girlfriend, sadly. My mom passed from cancer a few years ago, but it was really valuable to see him happy and to get to
ah,
spend time and, to just know he's doing so well. And my
what
older
a
sister,
nice place to fold somebody into.
it was magical. And it was just, memories that we will cherish with our children because at ages 12, 10, and 8, we all still do everything together. And we see our 12-year-old, she's about to turn 13, is starting to seek her independence, but it's what happens. So I just treasured that portion. And then we came down to the East Bay area where my father lives, and he held a celebration of life for my grandfather, who passed away just a month shy of 106. And it was so wonderful. I spent time before the trip kind of gathering my thoughts and writing what I wanted to say. And I was surprised when I got up there. I got very emotional, but it was from a place of love. He was such a strong, incredible man, a leader to all of us. And hearing everyone else's perspectives, it was just kind of, we wanted to gather around. We sat on the lawn and we shared. And it was so fun to hear some of the recollections, things I hadn't thought to weave into my own narrative, but it just really elevated the type of person he was. He had a positive outlook. He had a joy for life and learning. And just recently, my middle child had to do a report at school that talked about their grandparents and what they did for work. And I thought, well, I know he fought in World War II and he earned two Purple Hearts. Not something he wanted to talk about, but he did later write a memoir so that we could, know that difficulty he went through. But I never actually even knew what he did for work, which shows me he placed so much value on being present, being with the family, and doing the things he loved. I mean, at 75, someone joked, they were still skiing, so they got the senior discount. And I think these ski resorts didn't anticipate people being around till that
I
age
love
skiing.
it.
So,
That's
and my
great.
grandmother as well. She died just short of 100, and um, we feel very blessed. You know, they had such a presence in our upbringing, the support, the love that they showed, but also through their own marriage, the partnership they shared. They were married for 78 years, which, it is
Amazing.
just something that I strive to achieve. And I feel very grateful to have had that sort of leadership, that sort of generous, loving, giving spirit. And he had this amazing wink where he was a very handsome man and he had this wink, and you just always felt like the most important person when you walked into a room.
That's fabulous. You know, that story is beautiful. I knew it was going to be. I've actually been so excited about you coming back and us doing this interview today because I wanted to hear about it.
Thank
And,
you.
and one of the things, well, you're very welcome, and I thank you right back. One of the things that is so remarkable inside of that I want to really highlight for people is we don't get to live long without love and connectivity and purpose. If you are dreaming of your longevity, it's because you're dreaming about the people and the activities and those unions. And you're sitting in the perfect room for us to be having this conversation with family pictures,
Yeah.
the background. It is it is our life force. It's what gives us our verve. And sometimes people push that over to the side. But that's not business. Oh, please. Without your heart in your business, it is just it's drudgery.
Yeah. We spend a vast majority of our time. And if you don't have those relationships and your heart in it, why?
Right.
It feels
And
like it
you're
won't work.
exactly, and you're using all of this. I mean, you're the perfect person to address the issue of family and family offices and family relationships because you live it. And you're when you're talking about doing this celebration of somebody who lived to be 105 and your grandmother, I mean, those people, their influence on your generation, the next generation is huge.
Yeah.
And I was listening to somebody in a seminar this past weekend who was talking about health and well-being and all of us being practitioners of not just the psychology of life, but really longevity on a physiological, anatomical level. And he stopped talking. He was very scientific and cellular and physiology and all these different things. And he stopped and he said, now this is a 6'3" man who's very distinguished. And he said, you know what it's really actually all about? Yeah, nutrition, yeah, exercise, yeah, sleep, all of that. The number one factor in life for all of us is love. I sat there, I drunk it in.
Goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah, I teared up and he talked a little bit more and we're all sitting there. There are about 30 people in the room. And I said, can I add to that? And he said, yeah. And I said, I believe that it is absolutely true that love is the force. There's a thing called failure to thrive with babies, infants. We found that when they were neglected, they never were motivated to learn how to suck. So
Yeah.
they died.
What an amazing connection. And yeah, I'm not
Exactly. They
surprised.
need to be held in warm arms, eye contact, breathing, the beat of the heart, all of that. The connection is motivating for life. And I said, so love as a force in our business, love as a force in our work, in our passion, love of ourself and our family. And then for us as care practitioners, we have to love our patients.
Uh,
Now, tell me, with your customers, you're getting involved with these families. You do love the people that you're working with. You care about that family and how you present them, and they feel it. And I'm thinking that's the best medicine and marketing and public relations for anybody, anywhere. And it's not fluffy to talk about. It's the core,
No, it
right?
is. I wish more people had that realization because it's so simple yet so complex. Without the
That,
core of who we are, love,
right,
what's the point? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with the families,
Mhm.
that's huge. And what I have been doing, moving over to the other side of that equation, in getting to know some of the family offices,
Yeah.
what I hear them talking about is, oh yeah, not going down that terrain. When one family member calls and they want to know about this other family member and blah blah, I don't know what to do. I sort of back off and say, I'll get back to you because I
Yeah.
don't want to step into it. And what I've said is, imagine that you could. It's not about doing therapy with people, but
Hmm.
imagine that you could be scripted so that you could have these themes running through their head, through your head, so that you can really talk it out. Are you having that experience with some of the family offices that they're a little tangled up and like maybe they even really admire you because you've got these relationships with who it is they're needing to manage? Am I on track there?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very, very relevant, very powerful. I think there's no one size fits all, and
Right.
having those tools to address and not run from the issues. And
That's it.
I think when we think about why privacy is so relevant in the industry, I think there's a lot of fear driven through the media, fear driven through having that sort of exposure, and within the family a lot of fear in not knowing the proper communication tools, like you said. And I think a shift in the perspective can really unlock, maybe they don't yet feel it from the heart or have those tools, but you give them the toolbox to open up the lines of communication and how to overcome that roadblock, that fear,
Yeah.
and allow for love. Yeah.
So what is the I know that you're building the lists. I love what you're talking about in terms of what the big announcement is. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to stay in here like for the rest of the half of the day and I want to know everything about that.
Yeah.
What what is the single most important factor for you right now in your business?
Yeah. I think really it's to help create more connectivity, more efficiency in being able to add the right kind of value to each family based on their unique needs. And our data does have a strong focus for investment. So typically those looking to raise capital can come and they can really drill down. So it's not that we have every family in existence. Our goal isn't to have the world's largest, but it's really to have a very curated list of families who are seeking aligned investment deal flow and really to highlight. So our focus, of course, is to keep that as maintained, keep it as relevant, and to provide as much enriched information. And so we have, past investments. And I think that enrichment, with it was our new tech stack we released last summer, has really helped unlock because we have our historical profiles. Here's what the family invests in, here's their values, here's what they're interested, here's where they acquired their wealth. But really being able to see then, here's when they made that investment, how much it was, how the deal was structured, helps people understand the strategy, the preference. And families have patient long-term capital. They're not like the venture capital firms looking to
Yes.
get a quick turnaround, or the PE firms just looking to sell. They're in it for the long haul. They can be such amazing strategic partners beyond just the capital. Maybe they have the experience from the industries they worked in. Maybe they have the connections because, whether it's the same industry or they just have the network. These families, often go on retreats together. They go to conferences like you found at the Jaboy, and they learn from each other. So if you can really build your trust and offer value, it often will just be the domino effect and open up, unlock doors to being able to help more.
Yeah. The do you I know that you're active on LinkedIn and you're doing podcasts and I see you with the interviews that you do on LinkedIn. They're so informative, and you're covering a huge amount of terrain
Yeah.
from AI to the relationships to structure. Do you also have live events?
So for the events we currently throw, they are virtual. We do two events a month. The first one, like which we did yesterday, is going to be more for featuring service providers, people who are doing exciting things within the industry, people whose work I want to elevate, I want to introduce to my network.
Mhm.
And those are kind of a panel format, and we do them as a live stream, which is fun. It's brand new initiative this year. And it's a great way to play with different forms of media as things continuously evolve. And then my traditional masterclass format was previously to feature service providers and whatnot, advisors to families in a Zoom format, an hour-long interview that we do live because I think, if I'm learning, let's let people learn alongside me and ask their questions and participate. And I
Sure.
never imagined the volume of chatting and networking that kind of goes on amongst the attendees. Yeah, and it's great to hear some people meet after and they talk about, being able to connect with like-minded people just based on the chat alone from those events. But this year going forward, the masterclass series is really going to be focusing on elevating the families, getting those who have accomplished amazing things, who have stories to share from their past. And we'll be featuring Richard Wolkowitz, who actually now is an advisor based on the lessons
He's
he learned.
amazing.
I'm so excited.
I
And
am
then
too.
following him, Carol Levine Bernstein, who just a remarkable woman and the journeys and the stories that she has to tell. She's written an amazing book, Gather as You Go, based on the hardships, but the lessons she's learned and how she wants to share that with other families. And she's doing tremendous philanthropic work with, the fortune that she made in her earlier career. And so those are our master classes. But beyond that, I think there is such value in being in the room and feeling someone's energy and really getting to have live conversations. So we have an ecosystem of partners and like Neil Green is one and Denny Sherrod and Jetson Capital and Digital Evolution Institute. There's a whole array, and no conference is really quite the same. Some will be more slanted to service providers. Some are really exclusive for the families.
Sure.
Some have really price tags, and some. So I like to have something for everyone so that I can help clients who really want to be able to understand the ecosystem and get involved in network. And so that's been really fun. I'm a firm believer in collaboration, and if I can elevate what someone else is doing rather than reinvent the wheel, I'm all for it. So we do have a great
Yes.
events calendar on the website.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so tell everybody here, what is your website?
So it is familyofficelist.org, soon to be, before the end of the month, familyofficeaccess.com.
Okay. So if people go to the original one, there'll be a redirect and they'll learn quickly.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I'm so glad that you had such a wonderful, beautiful, meaningful trip
Thank
and
you.
that
Thank
you're
you for
back.
letting me,
Oh,
share it. Those things happen and become a distant memory, but thank you for letting me relive and kind of share and honor my grandfather today as well.
well, you know what? Now it's preserved forever.
I love it.
I
I'll,
do
I'll come
too.
back and listen often.
Yeah. So, um, I never put a time limit on these conversations, but I think we've given our audience so much to think about, to feel about, and to reflect about. I'd like to leave them hungry for more.
Yes,
So
I like
let's make
the
a deal
idea.
that we'll come back and we'll do this again and again and bring more for them so that they can continue to learn from us.
I love it. And I'd love to have you on one of ours as well. So to be continued.
That's right. So stick around here for a minute. I'm going to close this out. Friends, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you tuning in to this broadcast. I hope you've loved every minute of it. And I thank Danielle Patterson of Family Office List. And you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn too. And you can find me wherever you're finding this video, which is probably also on YouTube. So we'll just keep putting out our discovery channels here. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Deb Carlin with Danielle Patterson, temporarily signing out. Till next time, take good care.